There are museums with masterpieces, and there are also museums with just a lot of variety. The Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York falls into the latter category, and is one of the reasons why we should all go to museums just to see what you like. I arrived at the Met for the first time, and just going up the steps, I see all these people sitting outside of it. It was a sunny day, late afternoon, so there were around 4 p.m. There were a lot of people just queuing up. I got a ticket at the door. The Met opens till 9 p.m. on Saturdays. I decided that was the best time to go. It also does late hours on the Fridays too. So if you plan on visiting, definitely go there late to make the most out of the Met. As I mentioned, the Met is a huge museum, so definitely don't expect to see everything there at the first go. And that's where what I'm trying to say comes into play. The Met really is for everyone. You'll be able to find something that interests you, so if you don't see it, move on. Go to a different gallery and check out all the different wings. This is the gallery for the art of the Arab lands. It composes of art from Turkey, Iran, Central Asia, and later South Asia, and stretches across different decades. One of the highlights was this reception room, the Damascus room, which was taken from an upper-class merchant's home from Damascus in Syria. It had intricate patterns and from the top to floor covered with beautiful, intricate patterns. There were continual floral designs, and at the very center of this reception room is the Ataba fountain, which is a water feature. I find this room incredibly beautiful because not only have I not seen the reception room put right at the center of a gallery, but just standing at the entrance of it, you could see and feel the culture. You're immersed into it and you're transformed to a different place. The carpets, also shown in the same room as seen earlier, had covered walls from the ceiling to the floor, and it was beautiful the way that all these different carpets matched together, and at the same time the ceiling decorations. You could see that there was thought put into how cohesive the display is and how all these different elements are all wrapped up in one room. I find this section incredibly fascinating because I don't know much about the Ottoman Empire or art from, say, Turkey, Iran, Central Asia, Islamic art, but getting to see and catch a glimpse of a different culture right before your eyes in a place like the center of New York set the tone for how this museum trip will turn out. This is a portrait of a Mughal woman painted by Francesco Renaldi. It was painted in the 1787, and Renaldi obtained permission from the British East India Company to travel to Calcutta in 1786. It depicts the seclusion of elite women in India and suggests that potentially Renaldi could have used a hired model or an Indian woman who was the wife or a concubine of a European man. Due to the practices of seclusion, women weren't really allowed to show their faces, and this kind of contrast with the beautiful fabrics and all the draperies that the woman is covered in does give us a glimpse into colonial life in India. Since this is a new acquisition by the Met as a way to kind of explore how dialogues of colonialism are integrated and portrayed in museums. It is a way to spark these conversations, and having my personal interest in colonial history, I like to see how women are portrayed. Yes, there's ways that they are orientalized and sensationalized, but these are also ways where cultures are transmitted to the West. And we can't forget that these are also very informative pieces of how people saw people from the Far East. And when you think about art as a form of dialogue between two different cultures, it all starts to make sense. It's not really about subverting political imagery or to be a cultural warrior and say, this seems wrong, there's exploitation. Yes, that's true. It's also about people from a different culture and from a different time. And when people's moral values are very much different, you try to read between the lines and see what's actually being shown here. The fact that there's increased interest in different cultures perhaps is a clue that we should try to inhabit different mindsets from different places. This is not to excuse people trying to make light of colonialism. Rather, it's the reverse. That we should remember it's always been a connection and a dialogue between two different places. Not only are those who are colonized impacted by imperialists, but imperialists are also in turn shaped by the people that they have colonized, that the cultures that they try to subvert. And that's where the key is to all of this. Going to an art museum, I become very conscious about all these gender disputes. A lot of times, art portrayed in museums are very much focused on portraying paintings by male artists. And that shouldn't be surprising, given that art in itself has very much been male-coded. We see academies of art denying entrance to women. A lot of these places are seen to be noble places, places where educational pursuits and the realms of it are defined by men. And therefore it becomes intriguing to see how art museums are actively trying to go beyond that narrative. One of the ways is that we see an increased inclusion of women artists. There's a famous essay written by Linda Nochlin on why there aren't any women's artists, and I definitely recommend you to check that out. But a way to expand this dialogue on female artists is to go into museum consciously and look for them. You could do a Google search and see what women artists there are that the museum shows. One of the female artists at the Met that I want to draw attention to is Elizabeth Vigée-Lebrun. She's a French artist and she was part of the Paris Academy of Art. So she submitted 3 portraits of her daughter Julie to the French Royal Academy's salon. This portrait is Julie Lebrun looking in a mirror and also painted in 1787. What I like about this painting is the very fact that her daughter Julie is staring at the mirror. You see her looking straight at herself, and through the mirror she then meets the direct eye contact of the viewer. I've never seen this portrait before, but to see her painting her daughter at such a young age, showing this sense of self, showing this direct attention to the viewer, is marvelous. Not only is Lebrun trying to show that she isn't defined by these societal expectations, but she actively makes domestic life as something that is powerful in its own right. Her roles as a mother and her love for her daughter has shown clearly through this painting, and how vivid she looks does not diminish her status as an artist. Rather, it elevates it. It meets you in the eye. It's powerful, and it's also subversive. To submit a painting of your daughter right here to the French Royal Academy in the late 1700s shows a clear understanding that domestic life doesn't diminish you, but is a power of reclamation. And I think even now it's very prevalent. It's not just about what does it mean to be a feminist. It's about actively embodying that and showing that you can have it all. It also subverts the idea that feminism is something that's a modern movement. Even before, when there isn't a bracketed term for it, women are trying to make their names known. And that in itself is a very reassuring thing. That's why art isn't about cultivating a private space, even though all these systemic structures might seem like it. It's about actively opening dialogues. It's about changing cultural perceptions. It's about finding beauty despite all that. Next, let's talk about these pieces by Paul Cézanne that I really enjoyed. So Paul Cézanne is known as the father of post-impressionism, or the father of modern art. What post-impressionism is as a movement include artists like Van Gogh, so things like the Starry Night that you would know of. What the post-impressionist movement is known for is the way that it's not about depicting things accurately, but depicting things in kind of geometrical forms. You capture the motion and the intensity of what you see. It is a subjective experience. It's something that makes you feel just by how you see it, by vivid colors, by these different shapes which make up the painting. And these are the ones that I enjoyed from Cézanne. This is the landscape painting of Mont Saint-Victoire. If you look closely into it, all these are just simple brushstrokes capturing light and color, and they all form together to make a beautiful landscape of the mountain. And that's where Cézanne's genius lies. It's using these brushstrokes Cézanne decided to start his own way of depicting the world as he sees it. It's almost visionary. These other paintings are paintings of his that I enjoyed. This is Madame Suzanne in a red dress. I like how he paints his wife. Even if you can't see her face clearly, you get the sense of a person that she is, or who she was in Suzanne's eyes. How calm she looked, how she could hold her own poise. What I do like the most is the way that he paints people. We see these other paintings of the card players, men seated around the table playing cards, and also the fishermen of people catching and making their own livelihoods. The way that Cézanne depicts people shows how you don't really need the details, but how you capture people in their essence, the way that they make you feel, or in the impression that you get of them. And to be able to do that with just a few brushstrokes is where I think the mastery lies. I definitely would recommend checking out Cézanne. Joaquín Solola y Bastida is one of the artists that I've never heard of until I went to the Met. It was this painting, the way that he depicted water, that enchanted me. Later on, when I did some extra digging, I realized that Solola was known for the way that he painted water. There are other paintings where he painted water as well. So this is the bath, painted in 1905. Solola presented it to the Hispanic Society of America in New York. This painting depicts his wife and daughters, and the New York Times praised the water of many hues, lashing and foaming against the iridescent surface of wet rocks. I've never seen water glisten from just paint. You could see all the colors of the rainbow in it. It was magical, it was scenic, it was enchanting. And just getting to see that in real life, my jaw dropped. It felt so novel the way that water was depicted. I think it says a lot about how sometimes you can just go into a museum and not know anything about the artist. You aren't expected to go in with any prior knowledge. You can just be there, scan the room, see what stands out to you, and then zoom in on that one thing. Stand in front of the painting for like a good minute. Try to see the details, the wider imagery. You might just find your next favorite artist. It's also worth noting that the Met has beautiful architecture. For example, the Greek Statue Hall, the Robert Leman Court, the American Wing. All these different ways of trying to tie the museum together. Let's zoom into the American Courtyard at the Met. You would see these huge stained glass windows, and these are produced from the Tiffany Studios, which is not the same as Tiffany & Co. The founder of Tiffany & Co.'s son is the founder of Tiffany Studios, and Tiffany Studios was famous for producing stained glass like this and also lamp. A lot of the production that the Tiffany Studios does is related to glass. It ceased production in the 1930s. These two glass windows I'm about to show you are designed by Agnes Northrop for Tiffany Studios. Firstly, this is the garden landscape. The garden landscape is made in 1912, and we know that it's by Northrop because of a signed watercolored drawing, which is now in the Met collection. All these colors you see through the stained glass are all made out of glass. There's no paintings, it's just different kind of confetti-shaped lights merged together, and mainly women were the ones who are in charge of cutting these glass pieces. The next one is the autumn landscape, which was designed in 1923. Again, you can see the modeling and the texture are all created with glass. This is only possible because of a recent and kind of new movement like the arts and crafts movement and the Art Nouveau movement, which emphasizes these natural motifs and has a decorative focus. It's a way of picturing a modern age, what it stands for and how exciting it is. Finally, I'd like to draw attention to Florine Stettheimer. Florine Stettheimer is an American artist working around the early 1900s in America, and she has studios in New York. One of the interesting things about Stettheimer was that she just wasn't really recognized in her lifetime, and she just isn't that well known even now. I only came across her by chance because I saw this painting on Pinterest when I was scrolling for things for my room decor, and I printed it out, thought that it was pink in color, and it looked enchanting of people just prancing around in an art gallery. I didn't know it was by Stettheimer then, and it was only through this trip to the Met that I saw Stettheimer's Cathedrals of Art, which is what this painting is called, by chance. So Setheimer only had one solo exhibition during her whole lifetime, and that was received poorly. Setheimer then declined to be represented. She just feared the bad reception. But even then, Setheimer had artist friends. One of the people that she was friends with include Marcel Duchamp, who you would know through his piece The Fountain, which is made in 1917. And if that doesn't ring any bells, it's the one of a urinal. That was the one which caused an uproar of what should be characterized as art when he submitted it to an exhibition. Now, I'm not here to talk about Duchamp's work on whether or not it's valid, a story for another day. We're here to talk about Setheimer. Setheimer is known within artistic circles in New York. Setheimer didn't just have this painting that I saw called the Cathedrals of Art. It was actually a collection of 4. There's the Cathedrals of Broadway, the Cathedrals of Fifth Avenue, the Cathedrals of Wall Street, and the Cathedrals of Art. The Cathedrals of Art Setheimer worked on until she died in 1944. Setheimer elevates New York, makes it into these religious, spiritual places. We look at these iconic venues, the Fifth Avenue, Broadway, Wall Street, all these commercial enterprises becoming something that seems almost sacred. Might be dumbing it down to just say that Setheimer's elevating all these different places or symbols of New York into something that's grand. I don't think it's just about associating a city with religion. I think there's deeper layers into it. Potentially, it's also a subversive critique that we now have these symbols of the city being something that's almost spiritual-like, that people chase and search for all these other ideals. Look for morality, perhaps in Wall Street. Look for success on Broadway. Look for what it means to be fulfilled in Fifth Avenue. Look for ways to live a good life through art. It's using holy places and places which are unholy, like the city, merging them together into one conversation. All these paintings are painted with such dreamy colors. Almost makes me think that maybe we are taught to buy into the illusion, or maybe even to find beauty in the illusion as a congregation of people. So I've deliberately skipped out some of the main things that people talk about the Met, such as the portrait of Madame X by John Singer Sargent, also the Temple of Dendur, which the Egyptian government gifted to America. This is not to say or to devalue all these kind of collection highlights of the Met, but rather it's a way to kind of challenge yourself for what you go into museums for. At a collection that's huge like the Met, it's about finding what sparks joy for you. It's these conversations that you have with the art, and what stands out in people's minds are different from person to person. Art becomes something that's interactive. It's not preordained on what you should go see. Definitely go to the Met for the variety of its collections. Maybe don't go in there expecting, say, the masterpieces that you've seen in textbooks, because there are just more of that in perhaps some of the more well-known museums like the Louvre, the National Gallery in London. Go in to be there open-minded. Be overwhelmed by the volume of things there are. Find bits of it that you enjoy further down into that. That's the best strategy to go to the Met and also to museums in general.